This goes back to 2019 when I was working on a mass workstation refresh to get everyone off of the 10-year-old Windows 7 PCs and replace them with modern Windows 10 systems. This was partly because Windows 7 was now EOL, and also partly because the new ERP system was not certified for use on Windows 7. If it wasn't for the ERP upgrade, the Windows 7 machines would probably all still be in service to this day. Also, please forgive my jumble of a narrative. I work in tech support, I am not an author. I had replaced all but one machine, out of approximately 110 in total, at this point. The last user was the one person in the entire organization that was using QuickBooks to track finances for two of the company's subsidiaries. Of course, since his machine was 10 years old, he was on an equally old version of QuickBooks that not only did the company misplace the installation media for, they also no longer had the product key. And as it was EOL, we were solid getting any support from Intuit without paying more than what a new version would cost. I also learned that that version wouldn't run on Windows 10 even if we did have a way to reinstall it. Given this dilemma, and me being on the bottom of the org chart, I deferred to my manager regarding what to do. He had asked me at least 3 times to get him prices for a new license to QuickBooks Enterprise, but balked on the cost each time. Ultimately we reached what was supposed to be a temporary compromise where the Windows 7 machine would be pulled from the user's desk, a Windows 10 machine installed in its place, and remote desktop set up on the Windows 7 machine for him to remote in and do the QuickBooks work on the old system. I worked with the user on scheduling a time to do the swap out while he was going to be out of office for a few days and a time that I could show him how to remote into the Windows 7 box when he got back. I got as far as setting up the Windows 10 machine in the lab to copy his documents, desktop icons, bookmarks, etc. from when his supervisor got word that I was in the process of replacing his computer. After explaining to her the workaround regarding the QuickBooks, I got the impression she didn't listen to a word I said. She went on a rant about how I was not to touch his machine without her permission. At this point I continued on with the file transfer and notified my boss, who said he would address the concerns. I didn't hear anything else, and proceeded to schedule a date to do the swap. Right after swapping in the Windows 10 machine, but before getting remote desktop set up on the Windows 7 box, the Karen manager started ripping into me for not listening to her and ignoring her and being insubordinate. I told her to talk to my supervisor as we needed to get rid of the Windows 7 machines due to security concerns and that Windows 7 was not compliant with a new ERP system. Cue a story from her that when the new ERP system goes live it will have the ability to import directly from a QuickBooks file. I walked away and proceeded on with my kludge of a workaround, as that is the order I had from my supervisor, and sent my supervisor an email note detailing the encounter, to which I got no reply. The next morning my boss comes to me saying he has heard a complaint from the Karen manager. I recounted what occurred and he again promised me he would look into it. He also stated that the Karen was mistaken, and that while possible to import accounting records from QuickBooks into the new ERP system, it was not a simple task and the same capability exists in the old system too. I went on about my business until early afternoon when one of my co-workers took a phone call from the CIO. In this phone call, the CIO was not happy as Karen manager had escalated the complaint to him. My co-worker didn't know what the ordeal was about and I told him what it was regarding, and he transferred the CIO to my phone. I tried to explain that we had a workaround to the CIO and that we needed to get him off of the EOL Windows 7 machine, but he went on a ramble about how Karen was reporting that I was refusing to do my job. I tried standing my ground as my manager was the one that okayed the swap and workaround, but he demanded that I put the old Windows 7 machine back in place, and casually mentioned that he would consider termination if I continue to ignore orders. After the phone call ended, I discussed the situation with my co-workers and tried to reach my manager, who had conveniently disappeared. Since the CIO was demanding it, I put the Windows 7 machine back in place and updated it as much as I could, and there the Windows 7 machine sat, in service, up until the day I left at the end of 2020. I quickly noticed after this that my boss had a habit of actively avoiding this Karen of a manager. I had even seen him drop what he was doing and slip out of the back door to the office when she would walk in. This one's pretty short, I just thought it was funny. I logged in this morning before I clocked on to get my stuff set up. I had a couple minutes to kill before I clocked in, so I stepped away for a second thinking, this is gonna be an easy day. It was not an easy day, dear readers. When I came back to my desk, our queue had skyrocketed from like 3 holding to 100 plus. A clear sign that something broke, and it broke bad. Right before I clocked in too. So I get on queue, doctors are angry, nurses are confused and scared, cats and dogs living together, total anarchy. I find out that the servers that host the EMR system went down and there wasn't a whole lot we at the desk could do. After about an hour everything comes back up. And we find out the reason the entire system went down was because a fiber cable in one of the data centers got cut. And nearly took half the hospital network down with it. I pity the poor person who was responsible. Worked as technical support engineer for a company that provides SIS to car dealerships. While not as many salespeople are evil as you'd think, though the Canadian ones were always somehow far more evil than the American ones. Go figure, we did have a serious problem with the occasional male calling in and fishing the queue for one of our female TSEs. It would get reported to management, who of course would look concerned and serious, and of course would do nothing about it. A couple years into the job we released a new build of our main product, which wasn't just shiny new user interface but also featured a full elastic stack. For those of you not in the know, we now had a log of 99.998% of everything our servers did and a frankly obnoxious list of information to go with it. We also changed to a handy-dandy new chat system which logged the IP of the person who connected. 6 months go by and one of the female TSEs on my team complains in chat about Dan being back. Right away all the other female members send their condolences. It seems Dan had suddenly shown up out of the blue a week ago and was a frequent chatter. They wouldn't provide any verifiable information, and seemed to just get their jollies by harassing our female chat members. They'd spend so much time doing this, in fact, that they'd managed to figure out when each female TSE would cover a chat window. Our TSEs had been putting up with some particularly vile nonsense from this person, but because he never gave verifiable information they assumed nothing could be done. Which would be true, but our new chat service now logged Dan's IP. And, as a coincidence, we also logged IPs. What wonderful happenstance. So I messaged my manager, who could barely pull themselves from Facebook long enough to clock in, never mind any actual management work, and informed him I had an urgent project I needed to tackle. Routine for me, as I was always doing his work for him. 10 minutes later I've matched Dan's IP to a username at not one, but 2 unrelated dealerships. 10 minutes after that and I've got logs from no less than 14 inappropriate chats from Dan which corresponded to the same IP as a user Daniel and a host of tickets from that same person. Turns out this Daniel was employed at dealership A and was caught cheating their employer. Their user account at dealership A is inactivated about 3 weeks ago, and then a few days later that same IP is in use at dealership B tied to a user with the same surname as Daniel. It seems Daniel decided we were to blame for him getting caught cheating, which was true. I'd gotten roped in by a customer success manager, an account manager, for the uninitiated, to help their contact at dealership A confirm if they were being cheated. It may seem like a coincidence, but of the senior TSEs I was the only one not assigned a VIP client and so got assigned to handle all the critical issues the CSM team brought to us. Half an hour later I'm in a meeting room with my director, the dealership B's CSM, the CSM director, and the COO to go over my findings. Everyone but my director is shocked at the comments they're reading, and flabbergasted at how clearly everything lines up. Our COO asks me flat out, how often does this happen? I tell him it's been something reported on by our female TSE since I started here, but I'd not heard about it in a while. That said, I asked all our TSEs about it privately and they confirm there's generally one person at any given time who does this. I've informed them the next time they feel someone is abusing chat access they can come to me and I'll make sure it gets handled, and I've just submitted a change of process to director that establishes a process to ban any IP or phone number from our system if the person on the line harasses any TSE. COO throws a moderate death glare at my director, presumably because a TSE shouldn't be needing to write policy to protect support reps from harassment, and says to forward it to him so he can get legal to include something in our contracts going forward about it. I then get to sit in the room with everyone else while COO personally calls up the owner of dealership B on speakerphone and has a conversation with him. He lays out everything, and informs the owner that this person is to not contact support ever again. The owner says that won't be a problem. He calls in his general manager and has the person terminated on the spot. I was honestly surprised at how little resistance there was. We didn't even have to provide any of the evidence I'd dug up. I figure either this person was already accused of similar at their work, or the severity of a COO having to call you up to complain about one of your employees' behavior is enough to go on. Anyway, I get to go back to support and deliver the good news. The change in process I submitted was expanded to allow any TSE to terminate contact with anyone, for any reason. Our female TSEs were all called into meetings with HR, our COO, and our director where they were given clear instructions by HR that our harassment policy extends to clients and that if they report an issue of harassment to a manager and nothing happens then HR is to be contacted immediately. Over the course of the next 2 weeks I get called on to help a CSM read through some chat logs which was of course cover. Apparently all the CSMs were ordered to go through their clients' chat logs, and anytime they found inappropriate behavior. Well, I was really busy there for a month or so. Moral of the story, next time you harass support, maybe reconsider?